Let's start here. Big news. Former President Jacob Zuma's lawyers say the High Court ruling is wrong and there's a prospect that a higher court could come to a different conclusion. Zuma, of course, is fighting the decision that he should return to jail. Earlier today, the High Court ruled his medical parole should be set aside. It said Zuma must serve out the remainder of his sentence. Senior reporter Siphamandla Goge following the story and joins us now. Sipa, this has been a very quickly moving story today. So what is next for Jacob Zuma?
No jail time for now. The wait continues for the former president simply because he has taken a decision to exercise his constitutional right to appeal the judgment of this court in Pretoria. So for now, he will not be reporting to jail, as we understand that he has issued a notice for leave to appeal, but that leave to appeal as well needs to be heard, it needs to be granted or denied. So for now, he still has time. The wait continues for him. He has to be appeal this. Now we wait to hear what the Department of Correctional Services will do, what will be the way forward, because that's the department at the center of granting the former president this medical parole we are talking about. It was the decision of the former national commissioner of that department, Arthur Fraser, to place the former president on medical parole, and of course that decision has been unlawful today. So the wait continues for the former president. The Department of Correctional Services says they are still studying the judgment, but they don't have time. They need to study that judgment and decide what to do next. But the expectation is that they will also be appealing. Let's take a listen to what Singabako Numalo had to say earlier on.
We only received the judgment today. We are very busy studying that particular judgment, and at the right time we'll then pronounce in terms of our action moving forward. But for now, our legal fundis are studying that judgment, dissecting each and every statement and phrase in it.
So, Sipa, of course, the decision to give Jacob Zuma medical parole was made by Arthur Fraser. It was one of the last decisions, in fact, that he made as Correctional Services Commissioner. Has he commented today?
Not at all. That decision, he made it on the eve of his departure as the National Commissioner of Correctional Services, but he has not commented today. But I think in September, it was September 21, in Peter, did ask him about the prospects of this case, because at that time the indication was clear that certain interested parties had taken the matter to court, challenging his decision, saying it was unlawful. I asked him whether he was concerned about this case and some people and organizations challenging his decision to place the former president on medical parole. Remember that the former president was in Escort Correctional KwaZulu-Natal. So Arthur Fraser decided that he was going to grant him medical parole just days before vacating his position. Of course, that decision has been criticized heavily and also supported strongly by supporters of former President Jacob Zuma. But those who are against Arthur Fraser were questioning his decision, the timing, and also in terms of procedure, the way he went on about to grant the former president medical parole. There were reports that the parole board had actually advised him otherwise, and the reasons that he used to grant the former president medical parole, they appear to have been emotional, according to his critics. He said he was worried that it was going to cause instability in the country with the July unrest, and he was worried about the state of the former president's health or ill health. The court found that, well, those were not good enough in terms of deciding to place the former president on medical parole, and therefore Arthur Fraser earlier on in September had said that it was anyone's right to take the matter to court, but he was positive that he had taken the correct decision. But according to the court today, that was not the case. Let's take a listen to Arthur Fraser commenting in September about this matter.
It's legal procedural, so I've got no problems. Yeah, can we open?
Are you not worried that it's being challenged? Are you still adamant that it will stand any scrutiny?
People have a right to challenge.
Sorry?
People have the right to challenge. I'm confident of my decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you respond to the criticism, though, Mr. Fraser, that has been leveled against you personally for your decision?
No, everybody's got the right to criticize.
So, Sipha, it's going to be very interesting to find out what happens. As you say, Correctional Services is also considering whether to appeal. Jacob Zuma's lawyers have already indicated that they are going to appeal. I want to ask you two things, really. First of all, what Jacob Zuma's supporters and the ANC are saying. But the broader question that we're all very mindful of is that before Jacob Zuma was taken to prison, there were threats that the country would be destabilized. He was taken to prison, and then the July unrest happened, which caused untold damage. There's great fear around this period of uncertainty now around Jacob Zuma. Do you get a sense from his supporters that that sort of threat could reappear?
Well, generally speaking, that threat, people are talking about this judgment, and the law enforcement agencies, security forces, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, I can tell you that they are worried about those prospects. It's not something that they are taking lightly based on what has happened in the past. We all know that when the former president was incarcerated, there were unrest in this country. It started off by his supporters who were aggrieved that he has been arrested, and after that, chaos and anarchy ensued. On the other side, or on the other hand, you have a situation whereby you will never have a rule of law if you rely on threats, if any court decision is taken. But the reality of the situation on the ground is that 330-something people lost their lives, and untold damage to the economy. You are talking about billions of rands. So how do you balance the two here in terms of justice? No one should be above the law. Anyone should be equal. But on the other hand, how do you deal with the security situation in KwaZulu-Natal, in Gauteng, and in South Africa as a whole? So that's something that concerns law enforcement agencies and security officials in KwaZulu-Natal. And remember, during that hearing that was held about the July unrest, the Provincial Commissioner of Police in KwaZulu-Natal mentioned the issue of lack of intelligence. The Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihlezi Galala, spoke about lack of intelligence, that they were reading everything on social media about the July unrest. So yes, there are those concerns and fears about security situation in KwaZulu-Natal following this judgment. However, let me tell you that former President Jacob Zuma's supporters have commented. They say they are angry, they are disappointed, but they were expecting that he was not going to emerge victorious. The ANC nationally has issued a very brief statement, about 3 lines, saying, well, they will wait for the Department of Correctional Services to study the judgment and advise on the way forward. In KwaZulu-Natal, the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC was meeting in Ladysmith, but they have not had time to discuss this judgment because it landed today, and they were on their final day of the PEC meeting, which was basically unpacking the performance of the ANC in the local government elections and also upcoming regional conferences. But the attitude of ANC PEC members, some of them, not all of them, is negative towards the judgment. However, they have not formulated an official position right now. They are expected to comment tomorrow after studying the judgment. But this is what Tando Kuzwayo, who speaks on behalf of ANC branches in eThekwini, which support former President Jacob Zuma, had to say.
So we're not sure how people are going to react to all of this. But what I can tell you about us as eThekwini branches, we are going to meet and deliberate a way forward in this. But definitely we are going to demonstrate our displeasure because we are unhappy at the way in which it's being treated. Well, I had a displeasure of reading that particular judgment. And I agree with his legal team that the judge erred in both facts and also in law. You know, it's a poorly written judgment that is emotionally attached, you know, to President Zuma as a person, instead of judging the merits of the case before the court, you know, and that is really, really shocking. So we are hoping that when the matter is being taken up for appeal, it is really going another court will find differently, because that court is just emotionally attached to matters of President Zuma.
Yeah, so as you say, Sipha, it seems that former President Jacob Zuma challenging that decision to rescind his medical parole will mean that he spends Christmas in eNCA while that challenge is underway. Thank you very much for bringing us up to speed, Siphamandla Goge.